and I've been following these two players for over a year now, almost 2 years now. But recently, a couple episodes ago, I kind of spoke a little bit. I actually did a pretty deep dive on AJ DeBonces and Tyron Stokes, the number one rated player in class of 25 and the number one player in class of 26. So AJ DeBonces is actually officially. I said it actually, I think 2 episodes ago. I let you guys know that he's going to be picking the school he wants to go to in February. Well, he just announced what schools he's going to be visiting and the dates. So I kind of just wanted to give those to you guys to kind of let you guys know where his mind is somewhat at. So he's going to be visiting Kansas State on August 30th and September 1st. He's going to be visiting Kansas September 6th and September 8th. He's going to be visiting UNC, University of North Carolina, September 20th and September 22nd. He's going to be visiting University of Alabama September 27th and September 29th. He's going to be visiting Baylor October 4th to October 6th. He's going to be visiting BYU from October 11th to October 13th. And don't quote me on this, but I think he's from Utah, or I think his prep school is in Utah. So BYU, I know, is kind of high on that list as a forecast school. So that's him. Tyron Stokes also announced that he's going to be visiting his native. He's going to be visiting the Louisville Cardinals, and that's going to be coming up. He never decided. I didn't see what day exactly it was, but I know that's coming up. So he's a native of Louisville, Kentucky. Tyron Stokes, the number one player in class of 26. And I'll leave probably my link in the description of 2 episodes when I talked more about both of those players, because both of those players were on the same AAU team over this last summer, and I did a crazy deep dive on that game and what they did in the Peach Jam. So if you want to hear more about those players, again, I'll leave the link in the description. The next thing I want to talk about is actually last episode I let you guys know that there were a bunch of hoop academies coming up, and one academy that recently happened was the Elite 24 camp. And I'll leave the link in my bio as well if you want to because I kind of went over who were the attendees, who was attending that camp in my last episode, but also at the Formula Zero camp as well. I'll leave, again, the link in the description so you guys can get more content if you want to know more about it. But I just wanted to go over some of the people that stood out for me at the Elite 24 camp and also who stood out to me at the Formula Zero camp. Okay, so at the Elite 24 camp, a new kid. I didn't know who he was. He stood out, and he happened to win MVP at the camp. His name is Sean Abevi. He's a 6'7" point forward. He's lefty. He actually won the Elite 24 camp MVP. And he's the number 44th rated kid in class of 2025. He's undecided right now. And what I kind of wrote out and took from what I noticed from his game was I felt that he was a very polished scorer, in my opinion. He's a very impressive passer. He seemed like he knew how to command the ball, and he kind of slowed down the offense a little bit, to be honest. Okay, he kind of took away from the flow of the offense. He's an ISO scorer, but he was a straight killer. I'm gonna give him respect because he was a killer. But he could score in a multitude of ways. He had a lot of different dimensions to his game, and that's a player I would keep on your radar if you don't have him. I think right now he's a low 5-star, high 4-star player. Like I said, he's rated 44th in the class. So he'll be on my radar. And during that, I believe it was the championship game, he had 22 points, 7 rebounds, and 10 assists. But he was hooping. Like I said, he was being a killer. I even seen Brandon Jennings I think he was at the camp or something, and he said the same thing. He was like, yeah, he's a killer. And he was. I watched him. So that's a kid to keep on your radar. And shout out to Sean. Shout out to him, bro, because he was performing. But the schools, so far he has 26 offers from a lot of schools. Some of the notable schools that I kind of took notice that kind of took a look at him and had them on their recruiting ideas is Kansas is a blue blood school that had him. Some other smaller schools is Oregon, Arizona State, USC, Georgia, Auburn, Daytona, and University of Tennessee. Arizona State being the most recent, which he took in June. But yeah, that's a player to keep on your radar. I don't know if he's going to become something, but again, it's good just to keep your mind open. As basketball fans, at least I can speak for myself. As a basketball fan, I like to keep my mind open. He may not be nobody, he may be a nobody, but it's good to me, in my opinion, just to keep that open mind, because I've had players where will say I know the player, and then he doesn't really come to fruition for everybody else until he gets to the league or until like he breaks out in college or something. So to me, it's fun to be able to at least try to guess or predict how good this player is going to be, or like have a player on my radar and then watch him blossom. Like, to me, that's exciting. So that's him. That's Sean. So shout out to Sean. So at the Formula Zero camp, co-MVPs was VJ Edgecombe and Jaleel Bethel. I think I said Jaleel's last name wrong, and I'm sorry. Again, I'll leave the links and the names in the description. Always botch names, so I'm sorry. But, so those are two players, and I actually talked about them a lot in my last pod, and even VJ Edgecombe and Jaleel, I've been talking about them throughout actually a couple of my pods, actually really deeply. But yeah, so they both won. They won co-MVP at the Formula Zero camp, which took place in Phoenix, Arizona last week. And Damian Lillard, I think, was hosting the camp. And so my big takeaway was, I mean, VJ Edgecombe, I've talked about him in past pods, but I'm going to give him a little love right now. VJ Edgecombe, to me, was the best player on the Bahamas national team. On that team, we had DeAndre Ayton, Eric Gordon, and I'm missing a player. There's another NBA player that was on that national team, but I can't remember who. But if you know who, drop it in the comments for me. I forgot who else was on it, but I know those two players for sure. But he was the best player on that team. He's going to be going to Baylor. He's a highly rated kid. And so, yeah, I'm not going to go too crazy in VJ Edgecombe because I talked about him a lot. I've been talking about him a lot in a lot of pods that I've done. So, not going to go too crazy. But I do want to talk a little bit more about Jaleel and give him a little bit more love because I feel like I haven't really showed him much love yet, but I've known about him and I've even hinted on him a little bit in other pods. So he's 6'4". He's the number 7 rated player in class of 25. He's going to go on to University of Miami, the Hurricanes. And what I've actually wrote out about him and what I really liked about him is, I said he put up very efficient numbers in the EYBL, which EYBL is like one of the best tournaments, if not the best tournament high schoolers, perform in when it comes to comp and whatnot. He knocked down 41% of his threes. He's a shooter, great player. He shot 86% from the free throw line, which lets you know he's probably going to be a great shooter, or at least a very good one. He also shot 59% on his 2-pointers at the EYBL. And he's a really good scorer, man. I like his size. He's 6'4". And I'm excited to watch him at Miami next season. And he is also somebody that is on my early season top 25 players to look out for in college. He's on there. And I've talked about him briefly in other pods, but I just wanted to briefly give you guys a little bit more information on Jaleel. Because I think he's probably going to be, top 15, top 16 pick in next year's draft, depending on how he performs at Miami, of course. But he's a very ultra-talented kid, man. I also wanted to give a shout-out. Another player that was at the Formula Zero camp, his name is Asai Newell. 6'9". He'll be a freshman at University of Georgia. He's ranked the number, I think, 17th player. Actually, number 19th player in class of 2024. 6'9", lefty. And he was hooping at the tournament. It caught my eye. I wasn't familiar of who he was, but he really caught my eye. I kind of took time to kind of just watch a little bit more film on him after I watched him at the Formula Zero. And I'm interested to see how he performs at University of Georgia. So he's also on my list, my top 25 players to look out for in college basketball. Those are players I'm going to be watching. Doesn't mean these are like the best 25 players in college basketball. Don't mean anything. These are just players that me personally, I'm going to be trying to spend a lot of time and paying attention to and watching how they grow in college. So I wanted to give a shout out to him because I felt like he performed really well. So another sleeper kid that I didn't know about, he really stood out to me too at the camp. His name is Trent Perry. He's 6'4", number 4 rated point guard in class of 25, number 35th overall player in the class. He's going to be a freshman at UCLA, and he's an outstanding shooter. Great shooter. His true shooting percentage was 74%, and he shot 42% on threes in high school, which is great. But he grew to 6'4". And he plays with such pace. To me, he doesn't overthink his passing. He seems pretty knowledgeable. So I'm interested to see how he does at UCLA. I wonder if he was the number four rated point guard because of he wasn't tall enough. Like I'm interested to see, So he's somebody that's going to be on my for sure my watch list. He wasn't on my top 25 watch list if I'm being quite frank and honest with you guys. But when I give it to you guys the raw list right before college basketball season start, he might be on that list. So remember the name Trent Perry. Keep your eyes out for him at UCLA. Another player, a lot of people may be familiar with him. I've talked about him also briefly before. I want to give him some love because he was also at the Formula Zero camp. Is Jasper Johnson, lefty, number 12 rated kid in class of 2026. He was doing his thing. He was hooping. He was hooping at the camp. I'm not going to go too crazy about him again. I kind of gave him more of a shout out too in, I believe, last episode. But Jasper Johnson's a lefty, scorer. He has game. Jasper Johnson got game. He'll be a senior this upcoming year. So I'm interested to see what he does in high school because, honestly, he wasn't on my radar until this summer. So he got on my radar at the EYBL. So I'm going to be watching to see how he does his senior year. So he's somebody on my radar. He hasn't announced either what college he's going to yet. I think probably he's going to go to Kentucky. We'll see. I know he's also considering North Carolina, Alabama, and he's supposed to make his decision on September 5th. So I'll be